allegiance. Erik?
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight for the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare on bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing as Vince Garrison leads us on our invocation.
Please pray with me. Heavenly Father, Lord Jesus, Holy Spirit, thank you, Lord, for your presence here with us today at Waco Road. Thank you, Lord, for the many blessings you bestowed on all of us, clothes on our back, shoes on our feet, food and drink on our stomachs, roofs over our heads, good jobs, good careers, to be able to support our families and support our community. Lord, we thank you for being here with us so that we can embody service of us, that we can love you with our whole heart, whole mind, our whole spirit, and love our neighbors as ourselves. As we advise, Lord, to gather us here for, Lord, service of us. Jesus, most of all, thank you. Dying on the cross for us, that we may truly live in service to you and service to each other. In your risen name, we pray. Amen. Okay, welcome. Yes. We have hand cross. Yes, and Karen, even in the news, there's oftentimes we'll get a name that we want to make sure we get right, so we couldn't really explain on that. The paper? Paper team, yes, excellent. That's just yes. Again, all our guests.
Okay, we just have a few announcements. It's the first meeting in March, so we have some birthdays, and I actually see quite a few of them here. Happy Everett, Carolyn Best, Mackie Down, Larry Carpenter, Bill Deeds, Buddy Edwards, Mary Fidel, Hayes Fuller, Rodney Kroll, Richard Stockett, Bill Smith, John Spellman, Ted Teague, and Betty Willis. You would join me in singing happy birthday to our fellow Rotarians.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Rotarians. Happy birthday to you.
Fantastic. And the only other announcement I have is to let you know that the Youth Citizenship Banquet is our next meeting on March 24th. We have 4 table sponsorships left. If you have not sponsored, or if you have sponsored one and you want to grab another table, or you want to go together with someone else and co-sponsor the table, we can make it all happen. Just see Joanne or myself after this meeting. And next, we'll have Diane Sawyer come up to recognize and introduce one of our newer members who's also been a speaker and also one of our March birthdays.
I think from the school.
Yes,
director of the Waco Symphony Association. She was at the Dallas Museum of Arts until 2021, when we convinced her to return to her hometown of Waco. Carolyn grew up attending the Waco Symphony Orchestra concerts, singing with the Waco Girls Choir, and studying piano under the voice band. She also plays the flute and organ. She received her bachelor's degree in English from the University of the South in Swanson, Tennessee, and her master's in art history at Williams College. For 25 years, she worked at the Dallas Museum of Art, serving as director of programming and as director of Arts and Letters Live, the museum's literary and performing arts series that showcases best-selling and award-winning authors. She has worked with some interesting authors such as Larry McMurtry, First Lady Laura Bush, and Secretaries of State Madeleine Albright and Condoleezza Rice. She uses her expertise in this area to bring a multidisciplinary approach to the Waco Symphony Orchestra, and therefore spicing up our concerts with photography of the Grand Canyon and collaborating with NASA to incorporate the Webb and Hubble photography during the solar eclipse concert. She is also very creative and practical, finding out about an unexpected cancellation on our third day of the job and obtaining I Love It and his acoustic group in America was not able to perform after COVID. And this attracted new community members to the symphony. Carolyn is married to Craig Best, has 2 cats, Zephyr and Winnie. She is talented in many areas besides music, quilting, calligraphy, art, and tennis. Carolyn also loves traveling, hiking, canoeing, and gardening. She attends St. Albans Episcopal Church. Her favorite place to hang out is Fabled Bookstores. So if you will please welcome our new member, Carolyn Best, a woman of unique talent.
Now, next we're going to have David Tico come up. And as he does, he is coming up to present some Paul Harris Awards to some of our fellow Rotarians. And as he comes up here, I would like to present him with his Paul Harris +1 pen. And thank you for your continued support of the Rotary Foundation, David. I appreciate you. You're not here for us.
Thank you. I'm going to do these out here, so when I call your name, if you come up, please. First, Randall Moose. Yeah, that's a surprise. Yeah. Randall, so you know that the Paul Harris Fellow Award is given in recognition of gifts totaling $1,000 to the Paul Harris Foundation. Rotary Foundation, and the foundation, as you all know, is the charitable arm of Rotary, and it is one of the best, most efficient uses of your charitable dollars to give to the Rotary Foundation. We have almost eradicated polio worldwide as a result of the Paul Harris Foundation. They fund and support water and health programs around the world, and it is a great charitable organization. I encourage everyone to give and give generously to the foundation. And this certificate is in recognition of your becoming a Paul Harris Fellow. Thank you. Yes, sir. Hayes Fuller. Hayes, did you know? Did you know? Nope. That was that. Hayes, this Paul Harris Fellow pen recognition of your achieving the status of Paul Harris Fellow +1, which means apparently that you've given a total of at least $2,000 to the foundation. And so we give you this Paul Harris Foundation +1 pin to recognize that achievement. Thank you very much. Hang out. One more. Yes, Rosemary, come on up here. Rosemary Mays, refuse. I think this is right. Did you know you were getting this? All right. All right. Any idea how many more? So, Rosemary gets two little things. There you go. And that is in recognition of Rosemary's achievement of the status of Paul Harris Foundation +7. So Rosemary has given apparently a total of $8,000 to the foundation. And this Paul Harris +7 pin is in recognition for your Right. So I thought, well, all right. I often talk about they give me this role as the foundation chairman for Waco Rotary, and I thought, in addition to telling you what a great organization it is, that I would use a minute to remind you how to do it. So go to myrotary.org, log in, and there you will have an easy path to either put in your first or increase your donations to the Rotary Foundation. It then becomes part of your annual dues statement so that it just becomes automatic. It becomes, for instance, I have $50 every 6 months as part of my dues statement. And that just goes right in, and so when my dues statement comes in and I pay it by credit card, my donation automatically goes. 50, 100, whatever you can manage, that's the way to do it. It's easy, it's simple, and it goes to a great cause. So thank you all for your achievements that we recognize this afternoon, and thank everyone else for giving to the Rotary Foundation.
And if you are interested in getting to your next level in the Paul Harris Fellow Giving, there is a matching. Right now, if you give amounts between $250 and $500, the district will match that dollar for dollar. You just need to contact Rich K. If you need his information, just let us know. But there is a match going on until April 30th. So you've got time if you want to jumpstart your Paul Harris Fellowship. Now, without further ado, ask PJ to come up and introduce our speaker.
Thank you. Actually, I don't know why or how I was left off the list, but today is my birthday. Actually, it's not. I just like the attention. My birthday is in November. Our guest speaker today is Erik Swanson. Erik was born in Columbus, Ohio. He was reared in New Jersey and California. He graduated from Gettysburg College in Pennsylvania with a double major in history and anthropology. Erik actually attended Gettysburg on a scholarship. He started his museum career by interning at the Ronald Reagan Library in 2012, and then worked as the exhibit curator and coordinator at the University Library from 2015 to 2022. In 2022, he accepted the position of Executive Director at Historic Waco and also manages the Earl Harrison House and the Milford Garden Center. During his career, he held numerous leadership positions, such as President of the Museum Association of Waco. He married in 2022, shortly after joining Historic Waco. Erik told me that last night he asked his wife if in her wildest dreams she ever imagined him being the executive director of a nonprofit in Waco, Texas, and didn't to speak to the Waco Rotary Club. To which she replied, Eric, you're not in my wildest dreams. In addition to his full-time employment, he serves as an adjunct faculty member at Baylor University Museum Studies program, where he teaches exhibit design. So please welcome Erik Swanson.
Thank you, Vijay, for that introduction. And thank you all for the invitation to speak to the group. I'm probably going to take this off and walk around. I'm a bit of a rover when I walk. And to drop that focus off with great start. Let's get out. So again, my name is Erik Swanson. I'm the Executive Director of Historic Waco. This presentation is kind of a variation of something that I gave last year to the Texas Association of Museum Conference, so the context behind it. So, who is Historic Waco? Raise your hand if you've heard of Historic Waco before. I assume most people will be very deeply familiar. This is a change of pace from a lot of groups who I talk to. A lot of them have never heard of Historic Waco. The Rotary Club has been established for a very long time. A lot of Historic Waco. So, as a bit of a snapshot of who we are right now, I have, not including myself, 3 full-time staff, and then I have 3 docents. Those 3 docents, what they do is they essentially give tours to people Fridays and Saturdays. My annual budget, about $390,000. In 2024, we had about 1,139 people come to the houses, and we had almost 2,000 people come just because of Historic Waco events. So we're already getting more people coming from events than we are actually just coming for house tours, and that's something that I'll talk about later. So, as a reminder, Historic Waco has technically 4 historic houses. 3 of them we interpret as house museums. One of them is just our headquarters. So the East Terrace House from 1872 to 1884, that is the first one. The second one we have the Matola House, the Earl Langford Menard House, and then the Hoffman House is our headquarters. Is everyone familiar with the In-N-Out Burger? Yes, so right across the street from In-N-Out Burger, that's where we have the Earl Langford Menard House and the Hoffman House. Hopefully, there's more houses. Because a couple of years ago, Historic Waco had a management agreement with the GHP Foundation. And they had the Earl Harrison House and the Johnson Taylor House in their property between 4th and 5th Street, right across from the Waco Zoo. So Historic Waco, we also manage these 2 houses as well. So the Earl Harrison House we interpret as a historic house of tours. The Johnson Taylor House is more, it has an event center that was built around the 60s and 70s. So we use that mainly for events, weddings, things like that. So in case you're counting, I have more houses to take care of than I have full-time staff, which is a fun challenge. So we're going to talk really dramatic at first, and then we're going to talk about where we are now. So Historic Waco was formed in 1967, a bunch of different nonprofits essentially had historic houses, and they came together and formed Historic Waco Foundation Incorporated in 1967. At the time, the high point of the cultural relevancy was around the 80s and the 90s. You had things like the Brazos River Festival, the Christmas on the Brazos, were these 2 cornerstone capstone events that Historic Waco did. We also had a big fundraiser called Added Treasures that we did, and those 3 events essentially made up almost all of Historic Waco's income. It was really popular to be on the board at the time. It was extremely competitive, and so it was really something where it's slowly over time it kind of changed. And we'll go over some of those factors. But so I went back about 10 years just to look at, hey, what was Historic Waco 10 years ago? And at the time, we had about almost 700 members, but I looked at a lot of the events that we were doing, and a lot of them were just sort of the exact same thing over and over again. And there's reliance on just house tours. They didn't really get out in the community that much. They did occasionally do some events. But really, it was also a revolving door of employees, things kind of changed. So you can kind of tell here, so So 2014, a little over 600 members, and then I was hired in 2022. That was the lowest that our membership had been. It was around a little less than 250 members, and it kind of fluctuated. And then notice it's ticking up slowly, but we'll get to that. So, a final straw for a lot of historic Waco supporters was the selling of Fort House. Who here is familiar with Fort House? A lot of hands. So this was a situation where essentially historic Waco was faced with the fact that, hey, we have so many repairs that need to be done to these historic houses, something drastic needs to change. And so the previous director and board decided that, hey, this change is going to be, we need to sell one of these houses. The reason that they chose Fort House, I believe, was because we had a very interested buyer in Chip and Joanne Gaines. Since then, they have sold that house to Live Oak, and we hope that they're going to do fantastic, tremendous things with that house. But again, this was something where, at the time, I was still in grad school and I was working at Baylor when this had happened. And I remember there was lots of negative talk around this. People say, well, how dare historic Waco sell this? And really, the reality was, we couldn't afford to have all these houses. And a lot of the houses were kind of interpreting the same thing. So that was kind of the context of me coming into this position. As another added bonus, we had COVID in 2020, which was very fun. So that was something where lots of small house museums, lots of historic entities, they did not survive. But the historic Waco board, the previous directors, they managed to make it work. They did what they could. So that was essentially the situation that I was inheriting. So when I came in, my job was essentially just triage. It was looking at, hey, here are all the different things that we have to do. What do we start with first? So that picture here is a column that we had, and I believe this was the early group of our house. The East Terrace house had needed repair, and then McCullough and E&K also needed major repairs. I found out that the columns that we had in front of those houses, I just assumed that they were load-bearing, and it turns out they were not. There was maybe a small piece of metal that was kind of connecting those four columns to the porch. And I'm not an architect, BJ actually is, so he can attest to this. But the 6 foot porch was like this, and that's pretty bad, and it should be like this. So essentially what we had to do was, the very first priority was, hey, we need to get these houses back in shape. We need to use the funds that we used for the sale of Fort House to essentially get everything back up to snuff, to make sure that it's safe, and more importantly, it looks good, because we have holes in the house that doesn't really scream to visitors, oh, I want to go look at this house. Another thing we had to do was just the foundational documents. Anytime you're coming into an organization that's as small as Historic Waco, things just tend to get misplaced. So I had to go back to the beginning, and I relied very heavily on my Historic Waco volunteers to kind of say, hey, where are all these? I didn't know where collection management policy was. And for a museum, that's pretty important. We also needed to get new volunteers. Most of the volunteers were a little bit older. That was something of priority. Was, hey, we need to get just new, fresh, young blood into this organization. We need to get people to buy into what we're doing. Also, how are we getting guests in the house? So, who's been on a tour for Historic Waco? Or any of the houses? So, who's been inside the houses of the tour? So, if you went on the tour, and then maybe went on it 10 years later, what changes about that tour?
10 years ago, not when.
So if you went today, what do you think would be different about that tour?
I would expect
No changes. And that's, honestly, that's the beauty of historic house museums, is that they're a snapshot in time. But the difficult thing about that is that they're a snapshot in time. When you go to other museums, like you go to the Mayboard, they always have a traveling rotating exhibit. Historic Waco, we do not have that. We don't just have more main family artifacts that we could roll out of East Terrace. We have what we have, exactly. So repeat visitation is very difficult. And it was honestly something I was a little hesitant in taking the job initially. I remember asking that question to Historic Waco hiring committee, saying, hey, what is your plan to get more guests into the houses? And I'll never forget the response. They looked at me and they said, well, Eric, that would be your job. I said, well, If you give me a green light, I can get people in the houses. And thankfully, that is what happened. So one of the first things we did was update the logo. The logo on the left is a fine logo. It's very, very legal. It also had that pesky word foundation. So why do you think that was difficult for us at Historic Waco to have foundation attached to us? Because also in town there is Waco Foundation. The Waco Foundation gives lots of money. They're extremely generous. So people would look at our logo and be like, oh, they have a lot of money, and they would call us asking for grants. And the conversation would usually go something like, and then saying, hey, Eric, I would love a grant for my historic house. And then I would reply, I too would love a grant for my historic houses, and I have more of them, so I don't know what to tell you. So we essentially decided to just drop the foundation. We're still for Waco Foundation Incorporated for our official name. But for the logo, we wanted to incorporate some color and just make it a little bit more clean. So the blue that we have for the W is actually the blue for the Hoffman House. And then the orange is kind of a composite of the brick we have at East Terrace and some of the other houses. So essentially we took the colors as an homage to our houses. And we thought that was like a nice step forward for us. Also my first year is we were dealing with two different entities that were both interested in historic Waco working with them. The first on the left was the, as I mentioned, the GHP Foundation and the Gardens. On the right was the Taylor Museum of History. And so I have a museum background, so I initially very much wanted to work at the Taylor. One of my best friends lives in Atlas, Kansas. It is the kind of town where I can stand here and I look to the left, and that's the end of town. I look to the right, and that's the other end of town. And they had the most tremendous history museum. And I was thinking, boy, Waco really could do something like that. And so I was very much pushing for this museum. And then over time, thinking about all the challenges we would have and the funds we would have to raise, I just thought, as an organization, I couldn't commit Historic Waco to that, and that the Peak Gardens had more of an immediate impact that would help us with revenue, and more importantly, just getting the word out and start doing some of the events that I had envisioned. So we ended up working with the GHP Foundation and the Gardens there. So something that I try to do is when we first started, and really continuing to do, is like, how can we do more community outreach? If anyone's familiar with the Waco History app that Stephen Sloan at Baylor owns and operates, there's also a website that has, he actually brought that to the Historic Waco board years ago. And at the time the board said, hey, we're really only focused on just the houses. And so now I wish that we could go back in time and say, no, this is definitely something Historic Waco could do. Because the mission for Historic Waco is not to interpret and preserve the history of our four historic houses. It's to preserve and interpret the history of Waco and Tennessee. And so these sort of outreach events and different things we're doing is kind of our model to say, hey, this is more in line with our mission, and I want these houses to be open for the public. In my mind, there is no point to spending all this time and money in keeping these houses updated if we're not going to have the community in them. These houses are preserved for the people of Waco. I want the people in the community of Waco to use the houses. And that doesn't always mean house tours. Sometimes we just give, we had a Heart Film Festival that they essentially just gave a tour of the houses, and so we were looking to different filming locations. We hosted more volunteer meetings. That was another thing that was fascinating about Historic Waco, that each one of those houses, they all had their own different house committee, essentially, different volunteers. So a lot of the Historic Waco volunteers wouldn't even talk to each other, interact with each other, except for maybe one event a year. And so that was something where I said, hey, let's kind of drop these barriers and let's just have one Historic Waco volunteer, so everyone's just together and everyone's kind of united. We also started participating in parades. That's me in the parade. You can't tell now, I'm glad. It's a very loud Christmas suit that I wear every year for the parade. It's tremendous. And then also started reaching out to one of the wedding community, the property we have at Earl Harrison, and also our historic houses. They were excellent wedding venues. And so that was something we tried to push that for. And then lastly, we worked with the Master Gardener. There's also the Cactus and Succulent Society as well, and we have ties with the Rose Society as well. And that was something where I felt like if we could get those groups to kind of buy into the gardens, it would be a lot easier. Because also, I know absolutely nothing about plants. I think I've had one plant my entire life that died in about 2 days, and I was distraught. So we also, last year, we actually hosted the Rooftop Wine Festival, which was very fun, just a secret sort of event. We're going to host that again this year. And then we also had a theater group, Silent House Theater. They came into the East Terrace House, and for almost 10 days, they hosted Dracula at East Terrace. And so again, this is something, it's nothing related to really the mission of Historic Waco, but does it get people indoors? Yes. And really, that's what I want. And I want people to use these houses as a backdrop for some sort of event. If there's a way we can tie history into it, well, that's a home run. We'll talk a little bit more about that. So, for 2024 events, this is what we did last year. The first thing we did was we had more tea parties. I underestimated how much the people of Waco enjoy tea parties. I assumed, and the first was the Princess Tea Party, and I assumed, okay, we'll have maybe 20 kids or something. We had 2 sessions. It was sold out, and more importantly, it wasn't just kids there. It was also adults. It was people wanting to have a good time. They wanted to drink tea in a fancy house. And so we were like, okay, we're kind of onto something here. We always have a fall and spring lecture. The big thing we did last year was combining Thai murder mystery. So remember I talked about, okay, I want people in the house, but I also want to combine some history. So we've done a murder mystery in 2022, and it was pretty well received, but it was not really a great script. It wasn't really a history at all. But so we thought to ourselves, okay, Bonnie Clyde actually were and operated in Waco. In fact, Bonnie smuggled a gun to Clyde when he was arrested for stealing cars. One of those cars being Willie Cameron's car. And so they broke out of jail and drove out of Waco, stealing a bunch of cars on the way. And so we thought, okay, what if we had the murder mystery on the night of that event? And so that way we can incorporate some real history, and then obviously change some of the facts, but then tell the guests at the end. And so that was more of kind of hook that we needed. And that event, it's been sold out every single time we've done it. It was tremendous. We also had a Pat Neff food tour. That was something where, me working at Baylor, I saw lots of different connections that we could leverage. One of those being the Texas collection. Has anyone been to the Texas collection or research or anything before? Okay, a few people. So it's a tremendous resource that the community can use. You can schedule an appointment with an archivist. They have lots of archives and different collections of things. Oh, and so the food tour, the whole point of that is that we did the food tour based on recipes from Pat Neff's actual family cookbook and from his time when he was a governor. And so we kind of combined that into a walking tour. We had a bunch of history, a bunch of food, more important, because there's one thing people love more than food is, I don't know, I can't, maybe drinks, but that's about it. We'll also get into that later too. A new event that we had was something called Destined Legends. You can't really tell the photo, but that's a mysterious apparition of a Civil War soldier that people got to take pictures with. So the Destined Legends was an event where we wanted to bring some of Waco's history, maybe some of its more morbid history, but in more of an educational manner. Because there's lots of things in Waco that we could talk about. And so we were essentially kind of on that fine line between, we're not trying to be disrespectful, but we're also trying to let people know, hey, here's interesting things that have happened. Because people, that's the kind of stuff that gets people inside houses and they want to learn more about that. Additionally, we also had a birthday party for one of our houses that turned 150 years old. We had a massive scavenger hunt that we invited a bunch of the people of Waco in. We had a farmer's market event. Surprisingly, one of our most well-received events was, of course, the event that I was sick with COVID from. And that was a Colcord Avenue Parade of Homes. So the thought behind this, and I shout out to Karen because this was all her idea. The thought behind this parade of homes was that we had historically a number of courthouses, but we also have a bunch of community members who have upkept their historic houses as well. And normally the public wouldn't have access to do it. So we thought, hey, this would be kind of perfect storm to get people to go in and just learn the history of some other houses that you've probably driven by a million times, but you've never had the access to it. It was a big hit. We had people like showing up, we actually sold more tickets than we could actually handle. It was a tremendous event. So that was something that we really looked to capitalize on going forwards. In the brief snapshot of Earl Harrison, kind of what we did with this property. So last year we had over 50 events. It was really important to us that this venue was not just a wedding venue. We wanted to be, hey, if you have a wedding here, cool, but we also want there to be meetings. We want there to be receptions. We want there to be different historical events or anything. We actually had Live Oak, they did a Romeo and Juliet play for us as well. And it was just great fun. Waco Symphony, they actually had an event there as well, which was also tremendous. And so we raised about $61,000. And again, we have a revenue split, so we really under 20. Yeah, so that was very good for us. And that revenue has really helped keep the store Waco afloat so we can do new things. Our 2025 plans are, we actually done 2 of these, so check those off the list. So we've updated the bridal suite, which is going to be the Johnson Taylor House. And we actually just resurfaced the pond area and reinstalled the tent so people can have weddings covered, which is always nice. There's also other repairs that have to be done. And we're going to be working again with Silent House Theater, so they can do, I think we're doing 2 events this year at our property. One inside the house and then one in the garden. So we'll look forward to that. So just a brief snapshot of upcoming events. On March 1st, we had Granny Basketball. Who's heard of Granny Basketball before? Oh my gosh, it is the most fun. We have a professional Granny Basketball player right here in the audience. It's a tremendous event. They're better shots than I am. It's really embarrassing. I used to be so good, and they're better than I was. So. But it's just a really fun event. It's fun to support. There's some history involved in it. It's great fun. Again, so based on the discussion we got for the tea parties last year, we actually are doing 4 ones. Each one's going to be a different theme. The first one is going to be kind of like an Easter egg hunt / Alice in Wonderland event, which is going to be good. The next one's going to be a Mother's Day tea. The third one's going to be dealing more with kind of etiquette. And the last one's going to be a high tea. So this is the fancy tea that we're really looking forward to. So that should be pretty fun. We're doing a new event called Texas Comedy's Crash and Crush. And we're actually going to host it right here, which is exciting because the Little Rock is a tremendous place. And so this is anybody heard of the Crash and Crush before? A lot of people know their history here. I love talking about crowds that know their history. So essentially, this is going to be a 1-hour musical show that discusses that. They actually shout out Waco in some of the songs, so it's just a way to talk about Waco and McLennan County's history, and just a different way that we've done it before. Probably the most exciting thing on this is we're doing a new murder mystery. This is actually going to be at Earl Harrison. I'm writing the script right now. It's set in 1893, and it's the Cotton King's demise. So look forward to that. It's going to be great. So, future goals for a store Waco. So, as I kind of mentioned in the beginning, a big part about this is, okay, we want people in the houses, and we achieve that, which is tremendous. There is a trend in historic house museums going on right now, where a lot of historic house museums don't have regularly scheduled tours anymore. Instead, what they have is they'll have specialty tours. We'll have maybe one tour that just discusses the architecture of the house. You can kind of go through and you're using just the house as a backdrop as opposed to the main focus of this. And so this is something that we're definitely going to look into doing because another thing that we're still having is just staffing issues. We still need volunteers to help us. But again, every group out there also has volunteer issues. This is not something that's just historically goes dealing with. So it's how can we use the leverage of the volunteers that we have right now and to do something a little bit different. Because again, I don't want to be the director where we kind of take a breath and kind of like rest back on our laurels. Like this is the time where we have all this momentum. We should be trying to do new things. I'm not afraid to swing and miss. There's been some events that we've had that have not connected. But recently we've been on a bit of a string of success, and that's something I'm looking forward to keep going. Other long-term things, the image on the left, there's actually plans in the 90s for historic Waco to add a dedicated collections building in the back of where Hoffman and Eating Cave is. So you don't have to know anything about museum collections to know that an attic is probably not the best place to host all of your objects. And all the objects for historic Waco that aren't in the houses are currently stored in the attic of the Hoffman house. Which again, it's hot, it's not ideal, it's not climate controlled, it's not great. And if we as an organization want to expand and start getting more people's stories, we need better collection space. So that's something, that long-term plan, that's really what I want to move the organization towards. Also, one thing we have is a cabin in the back of the property. And so we actually got a grant from the Sunway Foundation to reshape that cabin. And so now, as an organization, what we're going to do is, okay, our predecessors got this cabin, they don't really have a plan for how we're going to interpret it. How are we going to use this? Is this something where we use it mainly as we include it as part of the tour for our neighborhood Canard, or do we do it where it's educational? Do we do it a mix of both? Do we have a small permanent museum in the back? And so these are the kind of questions that we as historic people and our committees are currently dealing with. So a lot of stuff that we got going on, a lot of different things. If there's any questions, I would love to hear.
Did you mention something about the spring and fall lectures that are so interesting?
Oh, yes. So our upcoming spring lecture is going to be actually, ironically, it's going to be on museum collections. And so we're hosting this at the Mayborn Museum. And so we're going to have representatives from the Mayborn, Texas Ranger Museum, the Texas Collection, and Dr. Pepper Museum. And essentially, the archivists or the collections people from those four organizations are going to talk to the public to say, hey, here's the stuff that we have in our collection, here's our collection scope, most importantly. I cannot tell you the amount of people that still go to the Dr. Pepper Museum saying, hey, I don't know if we have this bottle, we have this bottle. Dr. Pepper Museum says that, hey, I promise you, we have every bottle that we need. We have thousands of bottles, we don't need any more bottles. So it's still waiting for collections to kind of talk to the community and really kind of tell them about, hey, here's what we are actually collecting. And more likely, here's some of the cool things that you don't realize that we have. This stuff that's actually inside our scope that makes it different. And then as for the fall lecture, we're going to focus primarily on East Waco. Specifically, we're trying to do East Waco and all the businesses that were there before the tornado, because it kind of changed the landscape of what the area looked like. And so we're currently talking to different people, trying to nail down who our speakers are. But that's a topic that it should be very interesting. I believe we're hosting that here as well. Good question.
So, at the beginning of the program, you said there's about days.
Oh, yes.
Is that they were constructed?
Yes, I went too fast to miss it. So, for example, that East Terrace is at 1872 and then 1884. A lot of the houses, they were built initially, and they had things added on. East Terrace in particular had the initial house where you walk in, and then they added a dining room that connected to the kitchen, and then the third phase was the entertainment room. Oh, that's a fan question. Please.
The oldest son, Howard, lived in that house before he passed away. And he passed away in
And so that house in particular, so I mentioned, hey, historic houses, they don't really change. But so one thing that I've tried to do is actually update the tour that we had specifically. So for East Terrace, now when you go inside and you go to the right, one of the first things you see is the Dr. Charles Lemley Sanatorium. So Dr. Charles Lemley was a chiropractor here in Waco, and he actually rented East Terrace for his sanatorium. And that was something that we mentioned it on the tour, but we actually have some objects from Dr. Lemley that we put inside that. So we also updated the Rolling Canard House tour because Abner McCall, future president of Baylor, he actually roomed out of ENK. And so we updated one of the rooms as if he was physically living out of there, rooming out of there. And so that's different ways that we try to update the houses. We can do that to some extent. It's just hard to do it on a rotating basis.
Probably this group doesn't know get caught in the rain if I got married at their own Harrison house. I'm buried in heaven.
Okay.
It was a beautiful weather. It was outside and it was absolutely gorgeous.
we have surprisingly large amount of people come in and say, oh, I got married X years ago, which is always fun. We actually had the married and descendant of the Harrisons, from the Earl Harrison. They actually had got married last year. So that was actually really special to see the whole family come in and take a photo in front of the house that their ancestors built. And that was really cool. Any other questions? Cool. Well, thank you so much again for this opportunity. I always love talking to people. If you ever have a question about anything, about an event, you have an object you want us to donate, please, you're always welcome to stop by the Hoffman House. If you ever have an event idea or wedding, just please let us know. We are here to serve the community. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Eric. We are so pleased to hear from you today. And thank you for being part of the program. DJ, David, thank you for everything that you do. And I want to re-welcome our guests. And be here March 24th. It's our Youth Citizenship Award. It's going to be a big banquet. I think we're going to be downstairs. And come help us celebrate these great kids. Because they worked really hard and we want to celebrate Rotary pouring into their life. Now, if you will stand with me and we recite the four-way test. Is it the truth? The sacred laws. The will of better nations. Will you finish the law of concern. Rotary is adjourned.